Elliot Page. Elliot Page, allegedly, as the great warrior Achilles. And we're gonna get into that. But first, we need to talk about the hypocritical selective outrage, which this time is coming from the left. Because when this cast was first announced,
Elliot Page, the accomplished actor and producer who was cast in Christopher Nolan's highly anticipated The Odyssey film scheduled for July 2026 release, has announced the decision to quit the project entirely after facing sustained harassment, death threats, and relentless backlash from online communities, and from members of the original Troy cast who had launched a coordinated public campaign questioning and criticizing the film's casting choices. According to multiple sources close to Page, and according to statements from the actor's representatives, Page found the psychological and emotional toll of the sustained harassment to be unbearable, and concluded that personal mental health and personal safety were more important than remaining attached to a major film project that had become the center of cultural and industry conflict. Page's decision to withdraw from the Odyssey represents another significant casualty in what has become an increasingly contentious and increasingly bitter conflict over the film's casting choices and over broader questions about how classical mythology should be adapted for contemporary audiences. The backlash against Page's casting began almost immediately after the actor's involvement was announced, with Troy cast members including Brad Pitt, Eric Bana, Diane Kruger, and Sean Bean launching what became an organized public campaign questioning Page's casting and demanding recasting. According to sources close to Page, the actor initially attempted to weather the storm and to push forward with the project, despite the criticism. Page tried to focus on the work and tried to ignore what was happening on social media and in fan communities. But according to sources, the situation escalated far beyond simple criticism and far beyond legitimate disagreement about casting choices. The harassment became increasingly personal and increasingly vicious, with attackers using Page's transgender identity as a vector for criticism and launching what amounted to a coordinated campaign designed to drive the actor away from the project. According to reports from Page's team and from mental health professionals working with the actor, Page began experiencing severe anxiety and depression as the harassment mounted and as the campaign intensified. Page received death threats on social media. Page received messages telling the actor the casting was inappropriate. Page experienced messages attacking the actor's identity and attacking the actor's right to exist as a transgender person in a major film project. The harassment came from multiple sources. Some came from fans who genuinely believed the casting was wrong and who used social media to vent their frustration. Other harassment came from what appeared to be organized groups apparently committed to attacking Page and creating maximum psychological distress. Some came from coordinated campaigns organized by supporters of the Troy cast who were trying to create enough negative publicity around Page's casting to force the actor to quit. According to sources close to Page, the actor reached a breaking point approximately 6 weeks into the sustained campaign. Page began having panic attacks. Page began experiencing severe depression. Page began seriously contemplating whether continuing on the project was worth the psychological cost to personal well-being. It was at this point that Page made the decision to quit the Odyssey. Rather than pushing through and completing the project despite the harassment, Page concluded that personal mental health and personal safety were more important than remaining attached to a high-profile film project that had become toxic and that had become associated with a coordinated harassment campaign. Page's statement announcing the departure was relatively brief but emotionally direct. In a statement released through representatives, Page said, "After careful consideration, and with the support of my team, I have decided to step away from the Odyssey. The level of harassment and abuse that I've experienced since news of my casting became public has taken a significant toll on my mental health and my emotional well-being. I have received death threats. I have been subjected to harassment designed to drive me from the project. While I believe deeply in Christopher Nolan's vision and in the work the creative team has been doing, I cannot continue under these circumstances. My health and my safety have to come first. I hope that someday we can live in an entertainment industry where actors can be cast in roles without fearing for their safety or their well-being." The announcement sent immediate shockwaves through the entertainment industry. Entertainment journalists and critics immediately began analyzing what Page's departure meant for the Odyssey, and what it meant for broader conversations about casting in classical adaptations, and about the role of social media harassment in influencing creative decisions at major studios. The response from the Troy cast was notably muted. Brad Pitt, who had led the public campaign against Page's casting, did not immediately issue a public statement. Eric Bana, Diane Kruger, Sean Bean, and other Troy cast members also did not issue immediate public statements about Page's departure. Their silence appeared to some observers as tacit acknowledgement that the campaign had perhaps gone too far and had crossed from legitimate criticism of casting choices into something that looked more like a coordinated harassment campaign. However, some observers noted that while the Troy cast had launched a public campaign against Page's casting, the actual harassment and death threats that drove Page from the project may have come from sources beyond the Troy cast themselves. Once a prominent actor like Brad Pitt publicly criticized the casting and raised questions about appropriateness, it created a permission structure for harassment. Fans felt empowered to launch their own attacks, having seen major stars apparently attacking the casting choice. The entertainment industry response to Page's departure was notably sympathetic. Many actors, producers, writers, and directors issued statements expressing support for Page and expressing concern about the harassment that had driven the actor from the project. Several major entertainment figures expressed the opinion that the situation represented a failure of the entertainment industry to protect its actors from harassment and to stand up against coordinated harassment campaigns designed to drive certain actors from projects. According to reports from entertainment journalists, Christopher Nolan and Universal Studios faced a significant decision once Page departed. The film would need to recast the role that Page had been playing. The production schedule would need to be adjusted to accommodate the change. The creative direction of the film would need to be adjusted depending on how the role was reconceived. Reports from industry sources suggested that the Troy cast's campaign against Page had taken a toll on the entire production. Nolan had invested significantly in the project and had been attempting to honor the source material while bringing contemporary diversity and contemporary sensibilities to the adaptation. The campaign against Page appeared to have undermined some of that vision and had created an atmosphere of negativity and conflict around the project that affected the entire production. The situation raised broader questions about the power of social media harassment and about the ability of organized campaigns to influence major studio decisions. Some observers noted that if a sufficiently coordinated and sufficiently vicious harassment campaign could drive an actor from a major film project, what did that mean for studios attempting to make diverse and contemporary casting choices? Did studios now need to fear backlash from dedicated fan bases before making certain casting decisions? Other observers noted that Page's decision to quit might represent a kind of victory for the harassment campaign. If the goal of the harassment had been to drive Page from the project, then the harassment had succeeded. This raised concerning questions about whether similar campaigns would emerge around future casting decisions for other major film projects. The response from the LGBTQ+ community and from allies of transgender people was one of strong support for Page and strong criticism of the harassment campaign. Many LGBTQ+ advocates noted that Page's experience represented a stark example of how transgender people continued to face discrimination and continued to face organized campaigns of harassment, even in major entertainment industry contexts. The fact that Page's identity had been used as a vector for attack underscored to many advocates the reality that transgender people still faced significant obstacles in accessing opportunities and pursuing careers in entertainment and other industries. For Page personally, the decision to quit the Odyssey represented both an emotional defeat and an act of self-preservation. The actor gave up what would have been a major role in a high-profile Christopher Nolan film directed by one of the world's most celebrated directors. The actor gave up the opportunity to work with an impressive ensemble cast, including Matt Damon, Tom Holland, Anne Hathaway, Robert Pattinson, and many other major stars. But Page also protected personal mental health and personal physical safety. Page chose personal well-being over professional achievement. According to sources close to Page, the actor felt deeply that the harassment had become dangerous and had become intolerable. The situation with Page sent a significant message to transgender actors and to LGBTQ+ actors more broadly about the potential costs of taking high-profile roles in major film projects. If major film projects were going to create opportunities for organized harassment campaigns, some LGBTQ+ actors might become more cautious about accepting high-profile roles that might subject them to such harassment. This could have long-term implications for diversity and representation in major studio films if talented actors began avoiding high-visibility roles due to fear of harassment. Looking back at the broader Odyssey controversy, Page's departure represented another casualty in what had become an increasingly bitter and increasingly toxic situation around the entire project. The film had faced numerous controversies related to its casting choices. Multiple cast members had faced backlash. The Troy Cast's campaign had created what many observers viewed as an increasingly toxic environment around the project. Page's departure also raised questions about whether Christopher Nolan and whether Universal should have handled the situation differently. Some observers noted that studios have responsibility to protect their actors from harassment and to stand against coordinated harassment campaigns. Some observers noted that if a studio had taken stronger positions against the harassment directed at Page, the actor might have remained on the project. The situation also apparently raised questions about the responsibility of major celebrities like Brad Pitt in launching public campaigns against casting choices. When major celebrities use their platforms to criticize casting decisions, they apparently create ripple effects that can extend far beyond the original criticism. Their public positions can apparently embolden online harassment campaigns and can apparently create an environment in which individual actors face severe personal attacks and threats. Industry observers also noted that the Odyssey situation apparently reflected broader cultural tensions about how classical sources should be adapted and about who gets to tell stories about classical mythology. The Troy cast apparently believed that certain characters and certain stories had specific cultural meanings and specific cultural contexts that should apparently be preserved. Other observers apparently believed that classical mythology could apparently be reimagined and reinterpreted for contemporary audiences in ways that reflected contemporary values and contemporary diversity. Page's departure also raised questions about what responsibility Christopher Nolan had in continuing the project under the circumstances. The director had championed Page's casting and had defended the actor against criticism. Yet Page's departure left the director with a project that had become deeply controversial and that had become associated with harassment of one of its cast members. For Page's career, the withdrawal from the Odyssey represented a significant setback. The actor was no longer attached to one of the year's most anticipated films, directed by one of the most respected filmmakers in the industry. But Page's decision also received widespread support from the entertainment community and was widely viewed as a healthy choice prioritizing personal well-being over professional advancement. Industry observers and entertainment analysts have begun examining the broader implications of Page's departure for the entertainment industry and for how studios handle controversial casting decisions. Some analysts have noted that the Odyssey situation represents a particularly stark example of how social media harassment can influence major, creative decisions and can impact the careers of talented actors in real and tangible ways. One significant aspect that observers have noted is the role played by celebrity influence in amplifying harassment campaigns. When Brad Pitt and other Troy cast members publicly criticized Page's casting, their words carried significant weight given their status and platform. Major celebrities have millions of followers and significant influence over public opinion and fan communities. When such influential figures publicly criticize a casting decision, their criticism resonates far beyond their immediate audience and empowers other critics to launch their own campaigns. The situation also raised important questions about character-based casting and about ongoing tensions between faithful adaptation of source material and contemporary approaches to diversity and representation in film. The role Page was cast in had certain characteristics described in Homer's Odyssey, and members of the Troy cast believed those characteristics should determine casting choices. Others argued that actors could bring new interpretations to classical characters, and that diversity and contemporary values could be incorporated into classical adaptations. These are not simple questions. There are legitimate arguments about faithfulness to source material and about honoring classical authors. there are equally legitimate arguments about artistic freedom and about the right of contemporary filmmakers to interpret classical sources through contemporary lenses and with contemporary casting choices. What became clear in the Odyssey situation was that some people were willing to launch sustained harassment campaigns in order to pressure a production to make different creative choices. That shift from critical discussion to active harassment represented a concerning moment in how the entertainment industry handles disagreements about creative decisions. The situation also raised important questions about mental health and about the psychological toll of public figures facing organized harassment. Page was not the first actor to face such campaigns, but Page's willingness to publicly acknowledge the impact of the harassment and to prioritize personal health represented a model for other actors facing similar situations. Looking at the long-term implications of Page's departure, observers have noted that the situation might have chilling effects on casting diversity in major films. If studios and filmmakers come to believe that attempting diverse and contemporary casting choices will lead to overwhelming backlash and organized harassment campaigns, they might become more cautious about making such choices in the future. This would represent an unfortunate outcome, many observers noted, because it would mean that harassment and organized campaigns would have successfully influenced creative decisions at major studios and would have discouraged diversity and representation in major film projects. The entertainment industry will continue to grapple with these questions as it moves forward. How studios and filmmakers respond to similar situations in the future will help determine whether organized harassment campaigns can influence creative decisions, or whether studios will stand more firmly by their casting choices and will take stronger stands against harassment and intimidation of their cast members. For now, Elliot Page's departure from the Odyssey stands as a cautionary tale about the costs of casting diversity in major film projects and about the power of organized social media campaigns to influence creative decisions and to affect the lives and well-being of individual actors who become the focus of such campaigns.